Last year, in the middle of a severe heat wave, 5 men you're looking at succumbed to heat in an oil pipe. They spent a few days there hoping to be saved. However, the management of the company they worked for decided otherwise. A story from which blood runs cold. You will also see documentary footage. But only if you're ready. Sit back more comfortably, ladies and gentlemen, because it's terrifying. Have you heard about Punta-P'yer? It's a terrifying place in the island state in the Caribbean, officially known as the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Most likely, most of you have never heard of this place, and even less of the town. But the story you're hearing today has made the location famous, albeit for tragic reasons, all over the world. February 25th, 2022. 5 men are getting ready to go out on platform number 6 of the oil berth. Christopher Budram, Fizal Kurban, Rishi Nagasar, Kazim Ali Moladeshi, and Yusuf Genri. All of them were ordinary family men who were awaited at home after a hard-working day. But their job was definitely not an easy one. In fact, they were diving technicians who were working for LMCS in 2022. This company, by the way, and very deep, is engaged in marine construction and the repair of oil and gas facilities. On February 25th, their employees were working on an object of one of the client companies, Punta-P'yer. This is a state-owned company that delivers and sells oil products and apparently has infrastructure in the form of pipelines in the territory of the Caribbean Sea. Divers faced not the simplest, rather usual for them task, repairing a broken part of the pipeline. I won't go into all the technical details. I will just outline a few key moments that are important for understanding what happened and why. The pipeline over which the men worked was over approximately 400 yards in length and had a similar shape. It was horizontal and its main parts were underwater, with 2 vertical ends closer to the water surface and having openings. A tanker was connected to one end of the pipe when it arrived, and through the opening they pumped in or out oil products from the pipeline. And through the other opening at the top of the pipe, they pumped in or out oil to the refinery. Divers technicians repaired such a vertical part of the pipe, which was located at berth number 6. Moreover, it is important these repair works are not performed underwater. To get to the faulty part, divers technicians set up a special box of approximately 2.5 x 2.16 feet and 4.85 inches over the vertical section of the pipe. Air is pumped in through a hose, which pushes the water out from the middle of the box downwards. This way, repairmen can work comfortably without diving equipment and exposure. Closer to 1435 technicians entered the box. To perform the necessary work, they had to pull out a plug from the pipe that was protecting the oil inside the middle of the pipeline. The workers realized that the pipeline was full. Through a hole in the scorch, which I guess was intended so the water wouldn't get into the repair section under the skirt, it was extremely hard to reach the plug. One of the workers took a monkey wrench to loosen the plug on the pipe. As soon as this was done, within fractions of a second, everything turned into a horrific disaster. The plug suddenly blew off, and a jet of oil mixed with water shot out of the pipe with tremendous force, starting a tornado. Everything got sucked into the whirlpool. The divers, all their gear, everything. They swirled around wildly, bumping into each other and the sides of the box, tank, and heavy metal tools. They couldn't see anything because the visibility was extremely poor. When Chris Budram, one of the workers, comments on these events, he only manages to stutter words. I don't remember how I was pulled into the pipe, which was less than a meter in diameter. I remember being thrown through it at an unimaginable speed. I could no longer hold my breath. Opening your eyes burns and everything is pitch black like soot. You can't see a thing. My throat burned and my body ached intensely. I thought I might be dying. People were absolutely disoriented, scared, and didn't understand what was happening and why. One of them had a GoPro camera. Next, you will see documentary footage straight from the pipe itself. Audio recording from the GoPro camera.
We are right in the middle of the pipe.
We are in the middle of the pipe, man.
I'm in the middle of the water pipe.
Chris!
Yes.
Do you hear me?
I hear someone else.
I'm trying to choose.
Yes?
Faizi, I'm just with you now.
Yes.
Someone is in pain.
Who is that? Kaz, are you okay?
No.
Any of your ends damaged?
My leg is broken.
All people were either beaten or seriously injured, and someone even had fractures. Torture in the tornado seemed endless while the chaos did not stabilize. Only then did the storm subside. Luckily, they could breathe because so-called cat holes manifested in the pipeline. It helped that the pipe wasn't straight, but rather winding. Changes in elevation led to the formation of air pockets. We'll return to them later. They still have to figure out what happened and why. It is interesting that the people didn't understand on which exact part of the pipe they were located, and to escape, they had to reach Pier AQRN6 because the pipe's other end at Pier N5 was still blocked by a plug, and there was not a single soul, not a single living being, who would hear if someone was in the pipeline. Still, they were overjoyed and decided that they could not shout, as the longer they stayed quiet, the easier it would be to breathe. The divers took a turn, which they agreed to follow, and moved forward in an orderly column. The team moved forward one by one for about an hour, but then they had to stop. Fazil and Rishi, who were the most injured, simply couldn't swim any further. Swimming in oil, even mixed with water, is not the same as swimming in water. Moreover, it was likely very dark there. On top of everything, Chris, who was leading the team, noticed that his stomach flu was getting worse. To continue floating, complete submersion into an apparent water-oil mixture was required. And unknowingly, how long I managed to hold my breath before I could reach a new air pocket. People decided to part ways. Yes, let's say, we took different paths towards our future. Speaking of which, Chris went ahead. The rest of the team, who were injured more severely, were left to wait for him. When you hold your breath for too long, after a while your body, your legs start to give in. Your airways close up, you hear a whirring noise, and the body really struggles to pull in air. It's just an unbearable nightly torment. Budrum suffers, and Krishna is lucky. He did find the missing intestines after all. And for backup, 2 oxygen tanks, which were sent to the pipe along with the divers. Chris used these tanks to reach the next section of the pipe. The man could hear the blessing of Kerbin behind him, trying to reach him, but decided not to turn around as oxygen was running out quickly, time was running out, and the rest of the team was still moving, including Kerbin. The atmosphere was terribly tense. The man didn't even know if he was moving in the right direction, and if he does not reach the point he targeted, for him that would mean death. Thankfully, he did not give up. Chris suddenly touched the opening of a pipe and started to shout for help with the last of his strength. He was knocking on the pipe wall to make sure his voice was heard. All his attempts to get out of the pipe by himself ended in failure. Even though the entrance was only 32.81 feet away from his reach, it was uphill. And at the top, Budrum heard someone knocking twice from inside the pipe. He then gave the same signal back and heard the knock again in response. Around 6 p.m., Krisov was pulled to the surface. The man immediately began talking to the workers who were on the spot where it happened. Chris Budrum was certain that now his colleagues and friends doubted him. But in reality, they faced a new stage of anticipation and suffering. No one had come to their rescue. The company simply did nothing. The officials did nothing either. They just let the hours tick by. The situation was tackled by ordinary people, local divers who did not work for the company. Among them was the son of one of the workers who was trapped in the building. His name was Fazil Kerbin. His nickname was Michael Kerbin. He and a group of divers submerged in an attempt to determine what distance the workers were located at. The divers claimed that they had knocked on the pipe at several lengths, and at the very top, they heard a response. This meant that the victims were still alive and were still expecting help. Now, rescuers could be told where exactly to look for them and how to get them out. However, after this, the Coast Guard banned independent search and rescue operations. They received such a penalty from the state company Pariah. The same penalty was meted out to LMCS, where technicians worked. Michael Way, Pariah's technical service manager, stated that the company initially wanted to clarify the conditions in the pipeline and later sought help from professional divers rescuers. Another representative of the company, Terminal Operations Manager Colin Piper, confirmed this. The company made the best and correct decision not to risk lives in unofficial rescue operations. He also added that he understands the courage of Michael Kerbin, who sought to rescue his father. But, quote, I also see this from the other side. Would I, if I were the father in this situation, want someone to send my son into that pipe after me, where he might die? Every time I ask myself this question, my answer is no. And while company representatives and authorities were trying to figure things out, the people in the pipe, those workers, were hoping and couldn't signal that they were still alive. They pounded on the pipes with their last strength, but help did not arrive, not even after 3 hours. Help did not come that evening or the following day. And on February 27th, a desperate decision was announced for those who were suffering in the trap. No salvation. Representatives of the Paris company and invited experts stated that the rescue operation would inevitably lead to a new tragedy. In fact, the company was just waiting until the men who were trapped die. The relatives of the victims tried to reach out to the authorities, to the company, and allow them to do something, at least to try. But it was all in vain. It was clearly visible that 4 men were alive when Boudrum approached the rescuers. They remained alive till Saturday and even till Sunday. On Monday, the heart of one of the divers still felt alive, until finally he took his last breath. In full darkness, without hope, and without help from the already dead friends and colleagues. Then the pair moved from operation to operation, the essence of which was to reach the dead bodies. The only survivor, Chris Boudrum, still doesn't understand why the company did so. I promised each of them, mate, who was left in the pipe, that I would come back for them. If I can't go back, I'll send someone there to help them. And when I got out, I said that they are all alive. That couple went to a meeting to decide to blow up my friends. I was injured and barely able to avoid the blast. Why were good scuba divers, who didn't suffer any harm, unable to enter and rescue the trapped people? On the 4th day after the tragedy, the families of the workers were informed. Everyone was found. All were dead. The only one who got a chance to live was Chris Boudrum. However, he is still not over his shock. His existence now looks like hell. The man is constantly asking himself why he alone survived. But he can't find the answer to this question. He often suffers from nightmares. He constantly misses colleagues. It's like a tea bag. Every time you dunk it into your cup, the tea gets darker, darker and darker. These thoughts echo in my head. I can't get rid of them. Chris goes to physical and psychotherapy, but experts say the recovery process is going very slowly. Even taking his child to the beach, which he could almost feel with his hands, seems impossible for Chris. He frequently looks at piers number 5 and number 6, even when not visible on the horizon. At times, he barely recognizes his own role in what happened. I mean, why people ended up in the pipe. And it makes sense to him. Do you remember the innards? So the air was so dense and suffocating that it knocked them out instantly. That same air, the one that was in the tubes, became a tragedy. Divers thought the pipe was filled with oil, no chance of sparks. Naturally, they opened the valve without worry. In the pipeline, there was barely any oil. It turns out most of the oil was pumped out hours before the incident. All that was left was a spark risk. Just as the workers sent down the probe, the sparker in the box under high pressure was released into the oil pipe. As a result, the oil and water flowed back up into the pipe and trapped the workers inside it. After the family of the deceased and community representatives demanded compensation for the lost lives, a commission was set up to investigate the tragedy. However, she could not provide a satisfactory explanation for the events and was herself held accountable for the tragedy. The question even reached the president of the country. However, this did not help. The report submission deadline has been repeatedly delayed, most recently this summer. What's ironic is that over $21 million have already been spent on the committee's work. Significantly, the money went to court expenses, lawyers, and experts. Ironically, it's a state-owned company, Fury. The most ironic part of this story is that this company hasn't supported any of the victims. Financially, it's getting by on subsistence, or a single worker who survived. They just don't show respect to anyone. Chris says that even a regular payment of $500 would have been a help to anyone, and he has nothing. The company appears unwilling to change its stance on financial support going forward. Dear ones, if you watched this video up to this second, Know you are the best, the very best. I appreciate you very much. And put a like under this video, write any comment, and maybe you even want to share exclusive releases of horror that come out on the channel, but only for sponsors. For just 10 hryvnia monthly, you can access 5 exclusive releases. That's all. It was Sonya with you. See you in the next video. And while you might want to watch this or this because both are cool,